When Laura Bianchi, a 26-year-old single mother, crossed the threshold of the most sumptuous jewelry boutique in Turin, with her 3-month-old newborn in her arms and a worn jacket, all those present observed her with disdain. "I wish to sell this jewel," she uttered with an uncertain voice to the owner Davide Ferretti, extracting the only inheritance from her grandmother. "I need money for the baby's formula." The jewel had a value of 50,000 euros, but Laura was unaware of it. What happened next shocked not only Laura, but also every individual present in the establishment, because sometimes, behind an act of desperation, lies the fate that will forever change two existences. And because the jewel that Laura was about to sell concealed a mystery that would shake the foundations of one of the wealthiest families in Italy. Turin, via Roma, Laura Bianchi, 26 years old, proceeded anxiously along the most expensive sidewalk of the metropolis, pressing against her chest her 3-month-old newborn, Marco. The gray jacket she wore was worn, her sports shoes dirty, her dark hair gathered in a disheveled ponytail betrayed days of fatigue and apprehension. Little Marco was crying weakly, a faint lament that tore at Laura's soul. She had no more formula for 2 days, and the newborn was drinking only sweetened water. Her bank balance was at 0. Her last salary as a barista hadn't even been enough for the rent of the studio apartment on the outskirts. "Calm down, my treasure," Laura murmured to the newborn, kissing his forehead. "Mama will find a way out." She stopped in front of the window of the Ferretti & Sons jewelry store, one of the most refined emporiums in Turin. Behind the reinforced glass sparkled diamond necklaces that cost more than what Laura would earn in an entire existence. Laura extracted from her pocket a small golden ring with a tiny ruby in the center. It was the only memory she preserved of her grandmother Rosa, who had died when she was only 16 years old. The jewel had always appeared graceful to her, but nothing exceptional. She was unaware that the ruby was genuine, and that the jewel dated back to the 20s with a value that could have changed her existence. "Forgive me, grandmother, little Marco," she murmured, observing the jewel through tears, "but you must be nourished." She pushed the door of the jewelry store and entered. The contrast was immediate and brutal. The interior was a temple of opulence, light marble, subdued lighting, climate-controlled display cases. The few customers present, refined ladies with designer handbags and men in tailored suits, turned to observe that young mother so out of place. Davide Ferretti, 35 years old, owner of the jewelry store inherited from his father, was showing a pearl necklace to a customer when he noticed Laura. His first instinct was to call security. That girl looked like a vagrant who had gotten lost, but then he saw how she held the newborn, with a tenderness that couldn't be simulated. "May I assist you?" Davide asked, approaching cautiously. Laura blushed, perceiving the judgmental looks of the other customers. Excuse me, I would like to sell this jewel." She extracted the jewel with a trembling hand. Davide took it to examine it, expecting a piece of costume jewelry. But when he observed it in the light, his eyes widened. The ruby was genuine. The setting was platinum, not gold as it appeared, and the symbol engraved inside. Davide felt his heart accelerate. That symbol belonged to the prestigious Bellini jewelry store, closed in the 40s. The jewels of that collection were legendary. "Madam," Davide uttered, trying to keep his voice stable, "can you tell me where this jewel comes from?" "It belonged to my grandmother. It's all I possess, but my son needs nourishment, and I no longer have money." Laura's voice broke. Little Marco began crying again, and Laura started rocking him desperately. Davide observed the jewel, then Laura, then the newborn. A decision was forming in his mind, a decision that would change everything. Davide approached his desk and took a professional loupe. While he examined the jewel more carefully, Laura looked around nervously, feeling increasingly uncomfortable. How much could it be worth?" Laura asked with a faint voice. Davide raised his eyes. The jewel was worth at least 50,000 euros, perhaps more. It was a collector's piece, probably belonging to some noble Italian family. But observing Laura, that young mother who couldn't even buy nourishment for her newborn, he understood that she had no idea of the treasure she possessed. "Madam, forgive me, but may I ask your name?" Davide uttered. Laura Bianchi." "Pleasure. I am Davide Ferretti, Laura. This jewel is not a simple ornament. It has a significant history." Laura observed him confused, holding Marco tighter. "I don't understand. It's just grandmother's jewel." "Can you tell me something about your grandmother?" Laura hesitated. Grandmother Rosa was a very elegant woman, but after the war she had lost everything. She lived in a small dwelling in the countryside. She always told me that once her family had been important, but I thought they were just the fantasies of an old lady. Davide nodded. He was beginning to reconstruct the story. Many noble families had lost everything during World War II, and precious jewels had ended up hidden for generations. Laura, I must give you a precise valuation. Grant me a few minutes, please. Davide headed toward the back of the establishment, leaving Laura in the hall. The other customers continued to whisper and observe, but Laura didn't even notice. All her attention was focused on Marco, who had stopped crying but seemed weak. In his office, Davide consulted historical catalogs. What he found confirmed his suspicions. The jewel was part of the Imperial Rubies collection, created by master jeweler Antonio Bellini in 1923 for the Moretti family of Turin. There were only 12 in the world, and this was number 7 of the series. Davide returned to the hall with his heart beating hard. He observed Laura, who was trying to calm Marco by singing him a lullaby softly. It was a scene that moved him deeply. "Laura," he uttered gently, "I have news for you. This jewel is worth much more than you imagine." "Really?" "Perhaps." €500? Laura asked with hope in her eyes. "A bit more?" David uttered with a gentle smile. "About €50,000. Laura looked at him as if she had heard wrong. "What?" €50,000. Your jewel is an extremely rare collector's piece." Laura sat heavily on a chair, still not believing what she had heard. With that sum, she could buy nourishment for Marco for years. She could pay the rent. She could restart a dignified life. But Davide hadn't finished yet. What he was about to tell her would change not only her economic situation, but the course of her entire existence. €50,000, Laura repeated incredulously. But I only needed €20 for nourishment." Davide smiled, moved by her innocence. "Laura, may I ask what you do for a living?" "I was a barista, but I lost my job when Marco was born. His father left when he learned about the pregnancy. Now I live on subsidies, but they're never enough." David observed the jewel again, then Laura. "I have a proposal for you. I could purchase the jewel from you for its full value, €50,000. But first, allow me to tell you a story." Laura nodded, still in shock from the amount. "My father founded this jewelry store 40 years ago. It has always been managed by the family, and now it's my turn. But in recent years, with online business and competition, we're struggling. I'm thinking of closing." David sat down in front of Laura. "However, observing you today, I had an idea. You have a family treasure you didn't know about. I have a jewelry store that needs new life. What if we joined forces?" "I don't understand," Laura uttered, cradling Marco. "I want to offer you a partnership. You become co-owner of the jewelry store. I have the experience. You have something I've never had." "What?" "Humanity. Heart. Today, observing you enter here, I saw something that was missing in this place. Our customers are wealthy, but often there's no soul in their purchases. You could bring that authenticity we're losing." Laura looked at him as if he were crazy. "Davide, I know nothing about jewelry. I'm an unemployed barista, but you know what affection is. You know what it means to sacrifice everything for someone. You know the true value of things," David indicated the jewel. "This isn't precious because of the diamonds, but for the story it carries. You understand this?" Laura looked at Marco, who had fallen asleep in her arms. "And what would it entail?" "I'll give you €50,000 for the jewel plus a share of the jewelry store. You learn the trade, I teach you everything, and together we transform this place into something special." The other customers had stopped whispering and were listening curiously. This conversation was taking a turn that no one expected. "Why?" Laura asked. "Why do you want to do this for me?" David looked out the window, toward the street where he had seen Laura walking uncertainly shortly before. "Because today you reminded me why my father loved this work. It wasn't for the money. It was for the stories that each jewel tells, for the special moments it helped create." Laura felt tears in her eyes. I don't know if I'm up to it." "Trust me," Davide uttered, extending his hand to her. "Sometimes life places individuals before us who can change us. I believe you are one of those people for me." 2 weeks later, Laura observed herself in the mirror of the small apartment that David had helped her find in the center of Turin. She wore a simple but elegant dress, Her hair was well combed, and for the first time in months, she felt hopeful. Marco was sleeping in his new crib, satiated and serene. With the money from the jewel, Laura had bought everything necessary for the newborn and had also hired a babysitter for working hours. Davide was waiting for her in front of the jewelry store with a smile. "Ready for your first day, partner?" Laura smiled nervously. "I don't know if I'll ever be, but I'll try." Entering the jewelry store, Laura noticed that something had changed. There was a new corner with comfortable chairs and a small table with magazines. "What's that?" "A welcome area. I thought that mothers with newborns might need a place where they feel comfortable." Laura was moved. Davide had thought of everything. "Now," Davide uttered, "let's start with the basics. Every jewel has a story. Our job isn't just to sell, but to assist people in finding the right piece for their story." The first customer of the day was an elderly lady looking for a gift for her granddaughter. "Laura," Davide uttered, "why don't you try?" Laura approached the lady timidly. "Good morning. May I ask what type of girl your granddaughter is?" "Yep. She's a medical student, very determined, but also romantic." Laura thought. Then perhaps something that represents both strength and delicacy. She took a simple but elegant necklace. "This has a sturdy chain, but the pendant is a flower, resistance and beauty together." The lady smiled. "Perfect! It's exactly what I was looking for." After the customer left, Davide looked at Laura impressed. "How did you choose so quickly?" "I thought about what I would have wanted for myself at her age. A gift that told me I can be strong and feminine at the same time." Davide understood he had made the right choice. In the afternoon, a young couple arrived looking for wedding rings. Laura listened to their love story and assisted them in choosing jewels that reflected their personality. When they left, they were radiant. "Laura," Davide uttered that evening, "today you sold more in one day than I used to sell in a week." "Really? People trust you. They see that you truly understand what they're experiencing." Laura observed the jewelry store that was already beginning to feel like home. "Davide, thank you." "For everything." "No, thank you. You've brought life to this place." But Laura didn't know that her story was about to take an even more incredible turn, because her grandmother's jewel concealed a mystery that was about to emerge. 1 month later, the Ferretti and Bianchi jewelry store, the name had been changed to reflect the new partnership, was thriving. Laura had revealed a natural talent for understanding customers and their needs, while Davide handled the technical aspects and expertise on jewels. One morning, while Laura was arranging the window display, an elderly man entered wearing elegant clothes and carrying a walking stick. He was about 80 years old, with white hair and eyes that seemed to have seen much. "Good morning," the man uttered with a distinguished voice. "I am Count Pietro Moretti. I heard that you recently acquired a jewel from the Bellini collection." Laura and Davide exchanged a glance. "Yes," Davide uttered. "May I ask how you know?" "Because that ruby was part of a set of jewels that belonged to my family. I'm here to repurchase them." Laura felt a chill down her spine. "Forgive me, what do you mean by belong to your family?" The Count observed her carefully. "That ruby, along with a necklace and earrings, was given to my sister Rosa as a wedding dowry in 1943. During the war, Rosa fled with her family to escape the Nazis. We never saw them again." Laura turned pale. Rosa Moretti?" "Yes, my sister was called Rosa Moretti." "Why?" Laura sat down heavily. "Because Rosa Moretti was my grandmother." The silence that followed was deafening. The Count looked at Laura with wide eyes, as if seeing a ghost. You're Rosa's granddaughter?" "Yes, Grandmother Rosa Bianchi. She always said her original surname was different, but she never told me which one." The Count approached Laura with tears in his eyes. "My child, I've searched for my sister for 80 years, and you're my great-niece." Laura felt her legs give way. Davide supported her while she tried to process the information. "This means that," Laura began, "that you are the legitimate heir to the Moretti patrimony," the Count uttered, "including the lands in Piedmont, the palace in Milan, and a significant share in Moretti Industries." Laura looked at Davide, then the Count. But I'm just a barista." "You're a Moretti," the Count uttered with pride. "And now that I've found you, I want you to take the place that belongs to you in the family." Davide took Laura's hand. "Laura, this changes everything." But Laura looked at the jewelry store, the work she had built, the life she had begun to create. "No," she uttered with a firm voice, "this doesn't change who I am." Count Pietro remained in the jewelry store for hours, narrating to Laura the story of the Moretti family and her grandmother Rosa. During the war, Rosa had married a young soldier named Giovanni Bianchi, had changed her identity to escape persecution, and had lived hidden in the countryside for the rest of her life. "Your grandmother was brave," the Count uttered. "She gave up everything to protect her family, and now you've inherited that courage." Laura held Marco in her arms as she listened. "Uncle Pietro," she uttered, surprising herself using that term, "I appreciate everything you're offering me, but I have a life here now. Child, we're talking about millions of euros, a position in society. You could have everything you desire." Laura looked at Davide, who was listening in silence. "Davide, what do you think?" "I think the decision is yours, but know that whatever you choose, I will support you." Laura stood up and walked toward the window, looking out onto Via Roma. "Uncle Pietro, 2 months ago I was a desperate mother who couldn't buy nourishment for her son. Today I have a job I love, a partner who respects me, and I'm building something of my own." She turned toward the Count. "I accept my inheritance, but only on one condition." "Which one?" "That we use part of that fortune to create something useful. I want to open a fund to assist single mothers in difficulty, and I want Davide to be my partner in everything I do." The Count smiled. "Rosa would be proud of you. You have her generous heart." Davide approached Laura. "Are you sure? You're giving up a completely different life." "No," Laura uttered, taking his hand. "I'm choosing the life I want to live with the people I want beside me." 1 year later, the Rosa Moretti Foundation had assisted hundreds of families in difficulty. The jewelry store had become the reference point not only for luxury jewels, but also for its ethical business philosophy. Laura and David had married in a simple but elegant ceremony, and Marco had found in David a loving father. "Wait, you know," Laura uttered one evening as they were closing the establishment, "when I entered here that day I thought I was just selling a jewel." "And instead?" David asked, smiling. "Instead I found a family, a future, and myself." Davide kissed her gently. "And I found the person who transformed my life from a business into a mission." Their story demonstrated that sometimes the moments of greatest desperation can become the beginning of the most incredible opportunities, and that the true value of a jewel doesn't lie in the carats or the price, but in the lives it manages to change. Grandmother Rosa's jewel had done much more than nourish a newborn. It had united 2 souls, rebuilt a family, and created a future of hope for hundreds of people. If this story has moved you and made you believe that even in the darkest moments a new hope can be hidden, leave a little heart below. I want to hear your stories. Have you ever discovered something unexpected about a family object? Do you believe that difficulties can transform into opportunities? Have you ever received assistance from a stranger in a moment of need? Share in the comments your experiences of transformation and second chances. If this story touched your heart, if you believe that kindness can change a person's fate, subscribe so you don't miss stories that demonstrate that miracles truly exist. Share with those who need to believe that even from darkness, light can be born. Comment infinite hope. If you too believe that every ending can be a new beginning, remember, often the greatest treasures are those we don't know we possess, and sometimes an act of desperation can open the door to a future we would never have imagined. Life always has a secret card to play when we least expect it. See you in the next video with another story that will make you believe in the magic hidden in every day of our lives.